shut the fuck up about it.
I'm just very sensitive.
Buckle up. How exciting. I should put a blanket over my dick.
just not. I never explained. Sit with a pillow. Just sit with his pillow.
Welcome back to
Buckle up, baby.
episode 16. We are sorry we were not available last week. I was in Florida. It's a Family Guy. You know how Family Guy is just deeply embedded in us?
Yeah.
There are just lines from the past. I don't even watch the show.
That's from the Jeffersons clip, right?
My name's Florida. Florida.
Yeah.
And it's just that, like Billy Madison used to have lines like that in our bones that just come out. Like I'll just go once in a while. Goo!
Yeah.
And we all know that's Billy Madison looking at the pee.
I always say, oh, you sound just like him. That's from Billy Madison also. One of these tiny little throwaway lines.
That is a tiny one.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Say it again.
When he goes, oh, that was great. You sound just like him.
And he sounds nothing like him.
No, that's not the joke.
Oh, what was
it's
it?
It's when one of his like dad's friends does the Eric's Weasel laugh. He goes like, he goes, hey, that was pretty good. You sound just like him. Yeah.
He's like, do it again. He asked Carl.
Carl, yeah. Hey,
Carl, do it again. Who says you sound? Billy says that.
Yeah.
Oh, you sound just like him.
Yeah.
I will say Adam Sandler was the master of creating private jokes for all of us in that era. In his movies, they were so dense with these little lines.
Yeah.
Like, damn alligator bit my hand off. Like, you can say all those things.
Yeah. I mean, you can't even quantify this.
You eat pieces of shit for breakfast?
The Simpsons invented it.
I'm sure they invented it. I didn't watch any of The Simpsons. In our day.
You didn't watch The Simpsons?
No. It was a cartoon or was live action? The Simpsons.
I'm talking about the movie. Simpsons the movie.
No, you're not.
No. You ever what?
The Simpsons for me is like the Grateful Dead in the sense that I benefit from everything The Simpsons influenced.
Yeah.
But the source itself, I never could get into. It's almost too
wild. That makes so much sense. Also,
why?
It's
too smart for me.
No, it's the type of thing. It's just the type of thing you wouldn't engage with.
Go on.
No, it's not that it's too smart. I don't know. This might take the whole episode to really tease out.
Why would I not appreciate The Simpsons, but like everything The Simpsons influenced?
The Simpsons isn't so like The Simpsons is not like immediate, entertainingly fun. The same way Family Guy is.
It's not as tight.
It's tight, but it's not it's not
overt.
as fun. As other stuff, and it wouldn't. You like fun shot right to the arm comedy.
Yeah, I think so.
Less than like
conceptual or
yeah,
cerebral comedy.
Right, it's a little bit cerebral. It's definitely. I mean, it's definitely. Cerebral.
What would you say then about South Park, which is shot to the arm and cerebral?
It might be a great blend of both, which is why it's so great.
Because they hit you right in the gut, and the macro of a South Park episode makes you think.
Yeah, right. The macro is
so after you've watched the show, you're like, wow, they made a lot of great points. But in and of itself, what you're experiencing is right to the gut with South Park.
Yes.
You're laughing your ass off.
Dirty and farts.
And Simpsons and even Curb and things like that, you're going, oh my God.
Right. Curb, I mean.
You're not going, I can't. Right. Some people think Curb
can get there.
It can get there, but there's also these like moments of discomfort. Right. Curb in The Office, things like that, where you're just like, oh my God, this is so crazy what's happening.
Like you don't watch Seinfeld.
But you're not laughing.
You don't watch Seinfeld?
I didn't love Seinfeld.
Wait, can I guess what else you don't watch now?
Sure. Keep in mind, I don't watch a lot of TV anymore because I just TikTok for hours. But
you don't watch Rick and Morty?
No.
For sure not. This is fun. You never watched The Wire. You never watched Sopranos.
No.
You never watched Veep.
No, but I heard I would love Veep.
Although I think you would like.
I just missed that because it was too much in the current day that I just missed it on my radar. Yeah. People said you should watch The Wire, but would The Wire be a show that I love to hate, even though everybody loves it, or I would hate it? I don't know.
The Wire. I don't think you'd have the patience to wait for it to get good. It's a low, slow burn. You probably love Roseanne.
I never really watched Roseanne. I love like everybody Game of Thrones except for the end of season 7 and
Right.
all of 8.
Right.
So that's unanimous. It was hard to. That
I'm
was a
tr-
brilliant
I'm trying
show.
to think of comedy,
But
like
comedy, though.
shows. It's hard to think of like really great.
What do I
comedy
love?
Series.
What have I loved? Obviously, this of the comedy stuff that I've loved.
What have you loved?
What stuff have I been into over the years? I mean, you can guess
Like
it.
animated stuff.
Yeah.
Or-
It's all the right to the gut stuff, right?
Right. What is it? Like, give me. I'm trying to think of one.
Family Guy.
Family
was
Guy.
huge for me. Once
Yeah.
upon a time, I used to just devour Family
Yeah.
Guy. I mean, they've gone on too long.
American Dad, you love.
No, never watched
Just
that
joking.
one.
No one
Oh
loves
my
American
God,
Dad.
I never watched that show.
My friend David binged it, which I thought was funny. It's a funny thing to binge, American Dad.
Yeah, no, I never got into the post Family Guy stuff, but early Family Guy stuff hit me so hard. I love Jim Carrey. I love Robin Williams.
Yeah.
I love the guys who just are
Right.
undeniable. And there's an overtness to them. Not that they're not clever and whatever. I don't like guys who just scream.
Did you like Will Ferrell? That whole era?
Yeah, so Will Ferrell is so committed,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of funny there. I'm not like a critic. I like him. Sure,
Yeah.
it cracks me up. The era of his comedy to me is not as good as the era, say, of the Jim Carrey comedy.
Did you right?
You know, especially like the Judd Apatow comedy. To me, most of his movies are boring at a certain point. They
I was
just
gonna
they
say,
slow
yeah.
down.
Yeah.
They're not funny anymore.
Yeah.
They get into drama and boring is. Remember the movie Funny People? It like
Yeah,
gets
it
to
was
this
a
point where
weird
like this is
movie.
a drama and they just
That's
they
very
lose
weird.
steam and they just drift and they need to be edited down by most of his movies need to be 45 minutes shorter and some of the jokes are cheap. They're just a little bit like dirty, raunchy, outrageous. What
Mm-hmm.
can we say here that will just be outrageous and shock value? But
Right.
the individual talent is there, and I also thought This Is the End was one of the best movies.
I love that movie.
It was just great.
Yeah, that was fun. That was probably the most fun movie. Oh well, him and Franco, the Rogan Franco.
Blend.
Those are fun.
Yeah.
The interview.
Sure.
Pineapple Express.
But when you watch like Me, Myself, and Irene,
yeah.
it's like tops comedy.
Right.
It's just the best.
Did you like the Farrelly
And I like performance comedy. I like performative
Yeah,
comedy
yeah,
a lot.
So who does that now?
As
Who's
opposed to
like
conceptual
who's
comedy
the king of that now?
of performative comedy.
Yeah.
Who gets me every time? It's a good question. I mean, we both love Tim Dillon. In a sense, he's performative.
Yeah, but I mean, like, who's making movies or TV or sketches or something?
Key and Peele.
Key
one
and
of
Peele,
my
yeah,
fave.
yeah.
Of the modern day,
Yeah,
kills me.
yeah,
Amazing writing. They don't really do stand-up stuff that much. The
Good.
sketch stuff.
yeah.
And Eric Andre.
Oh yeah,
King.
I love. Did you see his new movie?
Yes.
So
Bad
funny.
Trip.
I laughed so hard.
So-
Yeah,
you-
yeah.
you
I,
just-
I love that stuff also.
And Jackass Forever is coming out. I'm very excited
Yeah,
about that.
yeah,
I've been
yeah.
seeing you see Johnny Knoxville on Howard Stern?
No, I
There's
don't.
these-
I've never.
I don't watch the
ever
episodes.
been into Howard Stern.
Yeah, but they release clips now on YouTube to kind of bait newer
Yeah.
generations of people to the show or just get them to come. And he was on the show. He's a fascinating person because, like, Howard asks him good questions. What attracts you to this danger? Why do you want to die so bad? What do you think it is that you want to take these risks? What is it? And on this last movie, he got this concussion from this bull stunt where he, like, had impaired cognitive ability that he had to get special treatment for, electroshock therapy, to bring him back.
Oh wow.
He was like, yeah, so that wasn't fun. I mean, he was serious
He
about it. And he
laughs,
says
like,
this is
so hard.
but the risks he takes for the art is really, it's so pure. Like he's like, I didn't want to do a movie, but Jackass, I've been writing these ideas and yeah, I don't know. He couldn't.
Do you think he like gets up in the morning and sits with his coffee notepad and he's like, bat balls?
100%.
He just writes down ideas.
He's a lot of the brainchild behind some of these stunts and what he can push.
Isn't it funny to imagine him writing them down?
Yeah, I get it. Yeah,
like
sure.
Jerry Seinfeld does every day. Like
Let's
Cliff balls,
Cliff balls. Steve-O's nuts if we cut it in half.
door penis.
But it's, and he's very humble about it in some of these interview clips. And he
Yeah.
just talks about it like anybody would talk about their art form in the purest sense. Like, this is what we've done. We've done it as friends when we were skateboarding and punks and back in the day, and people liked it. So we kept doing it. And he was writing bits for this last Jackass movie that's coming out, Jackass Forever, for the last decade, even though he didn't plan on doing another one. But he said his father always loved Jackass, and his father was dying, and he didn't get a chance to tell him that he was making another movie, but that was sort of his push to really go for this last one. And then after that, And then he talks about his kids and how he had to eventually explain to his kids what he is and who he is. This is Johnny Knoxville, and was just like, you know, I'm proud of the work I've done, but I don't want my son going anywhere near it. It was just an interesting thing. But Jackass killed me. The movies killed me. Bad Trip, Eric Andre, who's a cameo in the new Jackass movie.
Oh, good.
Kills me.
So
yeah, those are the good answers to those questions. Modern comedians
about Jackass
and Key and Peele.
You know, Steve-O's father was the CEO of like a huge company. Oh, we talked about this once. How like to do what Steve-O does, you either have to be really poor or really rich as a kid.
Oh, he's a rich kid?
Yeah, he grew up. He was a really rich kid who
We've
was
said this
who was
before,
neglected
right?
by his father. Yeah,
you either have all the time in the world or all the time in the world.
Exactly. And Bam Margera now is like a real addict. Like he's not allowed. He doesn't have. He's at a conservatorship the same way Britney Spears was, except he's allowed to handle his money. That's what I heard. Steve-O has this awesome podcast where he goes around the country.
So his voice got even raspier,
Yeah,
dude.
it's bad.
And I was just like, I was on the trunk of my car, and I said, lock me inside and throw me in a river and see if I can get out, dude, just because like, I wanted to see. So I was like drowning, and this shark came and bit off my foot, and I was like, holy shit, that's radical.
Yeah. It's even worse than that. That was like his voice like 10 years ago.
Now it's like an alien, like it's way up there, dude. He lost all the bottom end.
Yeah, but he wears these glasses, so he looks very sophisticated.
He was on Rogan too recently, and they were just like telling him.
Was he really?
Yeah, he was, or maybe not recently, but there are clips of him circulating on Rogan on YouTube. Because I don't watch TV anymore, just YouTube.
Right.
So I find these clips, and he's telling Rogan these stories. And what they personified like the crazy kid you knew in high school that would just go to those limits. Or like throughout your life, these are the friends that you were like, they just tested the boundaries of everything. He's like, oh, I almost got arrested. And he's like, I almost got arrested in DC because I climbed onto the Lincoln Memorial, and the cop told me if I post, I won't issue a federal warrant, but if I see these videos online, I will. And I just released the videos because I thought it was so cool. I just saw Lincoln. I was like, I gotta climb that, dude. Like, no inhibitions with these people. They just aren't afraid of whatever of those consequences.
Yeah.
The thrill of the experience is just worth it to them.
I read a review today in IndieWire that said the thrill of watching them is you're watching people who know they're never going to die.
Yeah, and they're not afraid
it's
to.
It's cathartic to watch that. Who don't think they're ever going to die. And it's just nice to watch people who do that.
Yeah, there's something awe-inspiring about these limits we all have that are like safe and normal, and someone to just go beyond them. It's like watching a stuntman.
Yeah. But yeah, Bam is an addict, and
wow, we didn't expect to go here, but this is just breaking the ice.
Yeah, it was very sad. They were talking about
Ryan Dunn.
He was interviewing Bam's friend, who's also an addict.
Jeez.
But he's clean and he's running like a program now for other addicts.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were just saying like, Bam doesn't have a phone, like no one can get in touch with him. He's like living with his parents.
He's not in this mass movie, I guess.
No, I don't think so, because he's like not like part of his recovery is like he's not allowed to like do things that like put him with any access to money or drugs.
Jeez.
It was I had no idea that was going on with him. I thought he was like.
Yeah, last I spoke to Bam, I mean things seemed okay. Well, he had that show with his whole family in the 90s with his dad.
Phil and April.
Oh, that was such an era.
And Uncle Vito.
Was that?
Yeah, Jackass and Bam were a big part of senior year for us.
They were what Gen Z's TikTok is, like those, that.
Yeah,
dominated.
We're having the Goldstein twins on next week.
We are?
Open invitation, guys.
Yeah. You press play on that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this week something happened to me that I want to talk about on the podcast. Just about. A friend of mine. I reached out to a friend of mine because I was in the city. I asked him if he wanted to get a drink and catch up. We met, and I was blue-pilled.
You were blue-pilled?
I was blue-pilled.
By a friend?
By a good friend of mine.
Yeah. Right?
What?
I just said his name under my breath.
Yeah.
You were blue-pilled.
I was blue-pilled, which red-pilled is when you... it's a callback to the Matrix. Mm-hmm. You have the choice between the blue pill and the red pill. So in the conspiracy theory world, getting red pilled means you're like you start opening your mind to all the conspiracy theories.
Or conservative ones.
I don't think it's conservative. I think it's more like
In the modern political context, being red-pilled
Yeah.
means, oh my God, I've been liberal all these years and now I'm totally realizing
oh,
how
I thought
crazy
it
that is.
meant just like I'm like red pill. Like I believe every conspiracy theory now because my mind is so blown. I don't even know what to believe
Semantics, but the term is used like, oh, this liberal who was prominent got red-pilled and is now much more
Got it.
conservative.
So I got blue pilled in the sense that he brought me back from the edge of the Rogan verse.
Oh, so you don't mean you're like a total like communist liberal now?
No, I just mean
All right, that's better. I thought you were saying he showed me all these crazy lefty ideas and I'm like totally bought in.
no, nothing to do with lefty. More about to do with basically everything we talk about on this podcast, which is like the Joe Rogan extended universe, and sort of giving me a really interesting perspective of all the haters.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So he's a hater of Joe Rogan.
he's a big
Critic,
hater.
a
He's a
big
big hater. So he's this friend of mine is. I hope he's listening to this because I'm going to be very complimentary. He's one of the smartest people I know, one of the most independent thinkers, and one of the most like he's not at all like mainstream. I love CNN. Like
Is he a physician?
Is he a physician?
Is he a doctor?
Yeah, he's a doctor.
Okay, I just wanted to know who we're talking about
No,
without
yeah,
naming him.
no, you know who we're talking about. But he's
If I do this,
he was very like up on Occupy Wall Street before it was like he was the first person I remember I was living with.
he's actually knowledgeable. I get it.
He's very but not only that, like I was living when Occupy Wall Street was going on. I was like very much in the startup world, living with people like doing finance. I was very much like, oh, these like dirty hippies in Zuccotti Park are like are crazy, and he was the one who was like, they're not so crazy. They actually have like a really interesting point. Like, and he also at that point like turned me around like, oh, like so he's coming from that world of like he doesn't just digest everything the New York Times tells him to digest.
Not just
like,
spit
he's-
back of the talking.
Not at
points.
all. He's not at all.
Fair enough.
Very
Let's give
smart.
it credit.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to
Yeah.
ask you something, and then you're going to continue.
Okay.
This is interesting because, from my perspective, where I sit now, it's very confusing to me how Joe Rogan can have detractors with such strong opinions to the extent that he does. And now you're going to make the case as to why.
So also I was sitting there and like I found myself he has this good line that he says where he says like when he's with his family at home, he's like the most pro-Palestinian person in the world. When he's with like his wife's friends, he's like the most pro-Israel person in the room. Like like he shifts between like the crowd. So I was sitting with him. I was like backing up Joe Rogan like crazy, like defending him wholeheartedly. And now I'm going to be here like tearing him down wholeheartedly. So like I'm not necessarily like anywhere. But like I don't want to.
They're
like,
both true. You're just
I
going to
don't
make
want to
the
debate with you. I just want to let you know what he was saying.
Fine.
So he was saying.
I'm actually interested because I want to hear an illuminated perspective on what is the big deal with Well, I'll make the case as to, and then I want to hear it because I think it's important just to elaborate. First, I'll lay it out, and I know you kind of know where I stand on this because we sort of once stood on this, and now you're blue-pilled. So fuck that. But the idea to me is this pushback Joe Rogan gets seemingly comes from people who probably don't really watch the show. And the reason I think a lot of it is spitback, people who have just taken caricatures of him, little sound bites, and have formed this caricature of Joe Rogan and this idea of him that isn't him, and they're not really giving it a fair shot. And if they even did a tiny bit, they would realize what you're watching when you watch Joe Rogan is a conversation. Not somebody preaching opinions even necessarily, and not somebody telling you the truth all the time in the sense that they know what's right, but someone at least attempting to find out what's true. And sometimes you're going to ask wrong questions, and sometimes you're going to come to wrong conclusions. But the whole show is based in the context of conversation. I'm talking to interesting people, and I'm asking the questions that I possess to try to arrive at a better understanding of things.
Right.
How on earth can that ever be controversial?
So his whole point was that I'm extending a courtesy to him that in any other aspect would be sort of like absurd, where he's like, so it all started basically where I was like, you're a doctor, like what do you think of these doctors Joe Rogan has had on his thing?
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, I haven't listened to any of them, but I actually think Joe Rogan's like I think like he's actually responsible for like a lot of people dying, and like this whole anti-vax thing is like insane. And so then I went into like,
Pushback.
these doctors are highly critical, all that. And I mean, I don't want to. We can go into point by point really because it is interesting.
I
but-
do want to understand
yeah.
what you understood.
No, but generally, he just applying the same critical thinking and reasoning we apply to everyone else, where he's basically like, when Anderson Cooper gets to a desk and says something like the Wuhan flu, the Wuhan lab leak is a conspiracy theory, and anyone who says that is a crackpot, like the amount that he directly benefits from that is fairly limited. Because he gets a salary, and like all the people in that organization get salaries, and they make money, but then we sort of extrapolate it to be like, oh no, they're all benefiting from shutting down this conversation, et cetera, et cetera. Just everything we all say about mainstream media, which he agrees with, by the way, like completely. When it comes to Joe Rogan,
So he's not saying he trusts them and their character. This is his own independent critique.
Exactly. Yeah, he's not saying
For the folks.
He's not saying mainstream media, CNN, cable
Has
news,
it
all
right.
that has it right. He's saying like for sure they don't. He's like Fox News is an entertainment company. Like literally on paper, they're that's how they protect themselves against lawsuits. He's like they are not the answer. But at the same time, when a guy sits at a desk and he's directly making he's making hundreds of thousands of dollars in his
Millions,
pocket.
you mean.
Well, for every episode. And the guys sitting across from him, like Malone and McCullough, they also have a lot to directly gain from these episodes. For some reason, we just take it as at face value, like, oh, they're just having a conversation. So his point was sort of like, as someone who's never listened to Joe Rogan and just looks at it objectively, he's like, here's a guy who's making millions and millions and millions of dollars because he found an audience. And the more he gives this audience what they want to hear, the more money he makes. And for some reason, we're just not critical of that guy. He's a nice guy. He has good intentions. Like they do it at CNN, but Joe Rogan doesn't do it. He's the good guy. And I'm just like, yeah, that's a fair point. Like, you're right. I don't know him at all. The same way, like, we're getting comments on, like, people don't know us at all. I don't know him at all. I'm sure he is a very, very nice guy. He could be this, like, very cutthroat business guy who is like, yeah, man, there's 50 million people who want to hear the anti-vax argument. I'm going to give it to them, and I want to make a lot of money. And, like, I'm not doing anything wrong. And I'm just having a conversation, but, like, and I'm like, yeah, that's a fair perspective to have. Like he is directly benefiting from giving this audience what they want to hear. No. And then I'm like, no, but I'm like, but he doesn't do that because like, his whole thing is he just wants to learn. He's just curious, and like it all started in the basement. He's been doing it the same way, and he's like, dude. I'm listening to myself talk, and I'm like, I sound fairly naive when I'm sitting here defending Joe Rogan's intentions. Like I just do. I feel like I sound naive when I'm saying this.
You let me know when I can respond, and I will.
And because I know what the response is because it's the response that I gave for the most part. He was.
There's something so fundamentally flawed with that assessment. What he did to you, not intentionally, but he pushed a button in you that flipped your MO on itself because you're generally skeptical of power and incentives, especially profit. You are personally.
But he is.
And you were like, so I apply that same standard to Joe Rogan as I do anyone else who's benefiting from so much money.
Well, why wouldn't you?
Because what's happening on Joe Rogan and the reason he's worth all that money is because people responded to what he was doing in the first place. His honest conversations with people became popular and therefore made him more valuable and made him worth hundreds of millions of dollars to Spotify. He didn't put that on to make this money per se. What he did, people responded to for a very particular reason. That reason being, this is an alternative to this mainstream media. And what's different about it? It's not edited. It's not contrived. It's 4 hours long of unscripted conversation. You can't fake that. There's no trickery going on here. listen, and he's saying I haven't even watched. So sure, there's a lot of money, but this idea that we should be skeptical of money is a reflection of value in this particular sense, especially. There's nothing corrupting about it in the sense that the money that he's making is because we, the audience, is rewarding him for giving us something so valuable to us, which is unscripted, honest conversation with everybody of all stripes. The guy's had communist, crazy Marxists on. He's had right-wingers on, left-wingers, entertainers, rock stars.
Specifically with the vaccine. I mean, so then we got specifically into the vaccine. His first point was that.
So I'm saying just assessing. Oh, look, this guy's making a lot of money. He must be compromised. I can't buy that. That's not.
I think compromise is too
or disingenuous.
I think he is vulnerable to the same sort of traps that anybody in his position would be, which is.
But isn't there a point? Yeah.
Which is when you find something that's working, you want to keep doing it.
Understood.
Yeah.
Everybody has this notion of, oh, you get the lure of, wow, this is really working. I'm going to sort of copy what works and forget the authenticity. However, when you watch the show and listen to the conversations,
so
any critical any person with ability to critically think and assess can say for them can decide for themselves. Did what I just listened to seem honest and genuine or not?
So
he's not like pulling something over it. Pulling something over our heads.
Something my friend brought up, which Joe Rogan brought up in his response to this whole controversy now on Spotify, which is I mean, I explained the people that were on the show, and he's like, did he have any pro-vaccine people on? Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, he had like Sanjay Gupta, but he didn't. And he's like, did he push these McCullough and Malone as hard as he pushed Sanjay Gupta? And I was like, no, he didn't.
No, because Sanjay Gupta did a horrible job.
But either way, I mean, Joe Rogan.
He gave Sanjay Gupta 3 hours, and Sanjay Gupta said, "I've never spoken to anybody for that long."
He addressed it in saying, if I have someone like Malone on, I should also follow that up with someone on the other side of the conversation. Crystal and Cigar had a segment 30.
I'm saying that would be useful. I agree that would be useful, but okay, so, that doesn't mean he's not genuine.
Yeah.
And you made this point a few podcasts or on the last episode where you said, if the other mainstream outlets would have these people on too, you wouldn't need Joe Rogan to be the only space where it could happen.
Totally.
I'm deep blue pilling you, and I can see it.
No, I don't. So I don't want to debate. I don't want to debate about it because I agree with you.
I know. I'm not debating you. I'm debating the point that he's making, being channeled through your weak, biased self. No, you're channeling a good argument in a sense that I understand that. But watch the episodes. There's no secret here.
So
there's no secret trick.
But if you watch the episode and you go point by point by these doctors were not. I mean, so Crystal Cigar did a 30-minute segment with this like Stanford PhD practicing doctor who it seems like he was family friends with Cigar in some capacity. Like they seem like they know him pretty well and they trust him. And his specialty is basically like studying like medical studies and like the statistics they use. Yeah. So he was going through I think Malone's points mostly, sort of point.
Bald guy?
No, not bald guy.
There was a guy who took apart Peter McCullough's episode in the fairest
way.
So he's this bald guy. I think he's a doctor, but anyway.
No, but same idea. They did have ours. I mean, and he basically tore a lot of what Malone was saying down. It seems like someone could do that with McCullough too. And what Mark was saying also is like, as credentialed as these guys seem to a layperson, he's like in the medical field. They're not well respected. I mean, he said like the ivermectin guys, especially. He's like whatever organization they said they like represent is not like a well known, well respected.
I've seen those response videos too.
Which was really interesting, and which is something like I was like I didn't hear that from Joe Rogan. Like
yeah, but how would he know?
He could talk to a doctor.
What do you mean?
My friend told me this. Why didn't Joe Rogan ask around like these guys are coming on the show? What's the deal with their organization?
But Joe Rogan has pushed back when he feels he has to push back. Like he's not afraid to push back on people.
Yeah,
I've seen it happen.
It seems like he has.
He had a guest on a week after Malone, a journalist from Australia. I forget his name, Zepp something. I'm mispronouncing the name. Where Joe Rogan was like, and what about these issues of myocarditis? And Jordan's like, yeah, Jeb, myocarditis. your risk for the vaccine goes up substantially. It's like, yeah, but you're aware that like, your risk is 10 times more likely for myocarditis
with COVID. Yeah.
And there's this moment and everyone thought Joe Rogan gets owned, but it's not owned. He's just like, oh, that's an interesting point. We don't know where that comes from. In the moment, he's not going to just change his mind,
Right.
but he has a guy on who disagrees with him and they're buds and they get along.
Yeah.
So I'm saying he's not trickery. Like, he has a guy on. Great. If Fauci wanted to go on Joe Rogan, would Joe Rogan say, no, I don't want you on? Fauci has every opportunity. It's so easy to criticize from the press secretary and say what you want, how Joe Rogan is dangerous. The response to Joe Rogan is all you need to know over who's right and wrong in this situation. The response to Joe Rogan isn't, here's why Joe Rogan is wrong, point by point.
Right.
I'm gonna go on the show and we'll talk to Joe and I'll explain why droplets are dangerous. If they were brave enough and if their points were sound enough, you could easily debate these. Instead, they're running in fear and trying to shut down the
They don't want to have a long conversation with anybody.
They're trying to shut down the conversation, which tells you who the honest players are in this game.
What Neil Young, I think, should have done was release a special with Neil Young where he sits down with a pro-vax person and has this amazing special.
So we can segment
Who wouldn't
into
listen
that?
to that? That would be amazing.
I want to segment into that part of the conversation because that's a huge topic. But let's wrap this up.
Before we go back,
button this up.
I do think
because
I do think it's here. Well, here's what I want to button the whole thing up with.
Yeah.
We're gonna live long enough to see all these up and coming rabble rousers, Crystal Cigar, Joe Rogan, Tim Dillon, Anthony Schultz, like all of them. We're gonna live long enough to see them become the man.
Andrew Schultz.
And what did I say?
Anthony.
I'm talking about his. You don't know Anthony Schultz.
Oh.
He's like, no, I'm just joking. Andrew Schultz. I think we're gonna live long enough to see all of them become the establishment, and then get swept and get like swept under from.
But before the establishment, do you think they're gonna become vindicated? I think so.
I think so.
The tide is turning towards. It's so obvious that even people who were all about COVID restrictions are now just saying, no, this is ridiculous. I call your bluff.
I mean, his point was so good on the video, but he's like, it was heresy to say that with the vaccine you could still catch COVID.
So what would this mutual friend of ours, who's very smart, say to those things? How can Joe Rogan be his boogeyman or his subject of criticism when there's so much more malfeasance going on the opposite side?
I think he would say they're not mutually exclusive. But I also just, the only thing I really want to take away from it is just that I think that there is a point where you have to see someone like Joe Rogan and someone with a platform as powerful as he is, as more than just some guy in his studio having fun conversations. And you just have to think about it critically at a certain point of like, he's a very powerful force. And with that doesn't necessarily come responsibility, but we have to think about it critically.
Yes.
That's
here's why you're not actually blue-pilled. You ready? Because Joe Rogan's audience likes the fact that his show demands that you think critically. When you watch Joe Rogan episodes, he's sort of representing for us at large as the critical thinker in the room to ask questions from somebody who has authority, because Joe Rogan's whole premise is I'm a fucking idiot. I just have questions.
Right.
So, and it's not some act. He's like, I have questions and I like talking to interesting people. And that's why his podcast grew, because people watch it and then they start thinking.
But that whole attitude,
as opposed to mainstream media, which is like, you don't have to think. Here are the answers.
Yeah, I hear it. It's the reason I like the show.
And like you're talking to a person who's making this analysis and hasn't watched Joe Rogan.
But
how absurd! How absurd!
I am thinking of him, and I'm also thinking about Chris. I'm thinking about all these things a little bit more. I'm giving them less of a benefit of a doubt.
Granted, they're not all impervious to the corruption they're critiquing and criticizing.
Yes.
But that's saying everybody's human. That's not a profound point.
But I mean, I think it is profound because basically right now to Joe Rogan fans, Joe Rogan can do no wrong. Like, I mean, he really can do no wrong. What could he do? Well, what could he do that would make people not trust him? I thought of something. Mark. Well, maybe we'll bleep that out. Yeah. The guy, our friend. It doesn't. I don't think it matters.
Just don't say the last name.
It doesn't matter. The guy, my friend who was talking to, was convinced that
I thought it was Danny.
That he took the vaccine. And I was saying if it came out that Joe Rogan took the vaccine,
then he would be lied about it,
that would be a huge deal to his fans.
Of course,
he lied, not that he took the vaccine, that he lied.
That he lied. because he's very honest, and that's what he strives to be.
So
Very, very honest.
at the same
in what he knows and doesn't know, and what questions he has. I'm just saying, watch the content, judge for yourself.
Totally,
It's so
I agree.
ironic.
Yeah.
With all due respect to this friend who I respect, it's very ironic that his critique would be that we're all just unconditionally praising him and not thinking critically, but he hasn't watched the episodes to assess.
But I think you can only can only have that objectivity without becoming a fan.
But
Just
not
to say
that.
here's
he's
the,
making a valid point, which
Yeah.
is don't take everything you hear at face value. There's always another side to it, as
No,
genuine as it seems on the show.
I don't think that's his point. I think his point is don't take everybody at face value. Don't take Malone at face value, and don't take Joe Rogan at face value. That they both have the best intentions.
Yeah, but like, you'd have to have in order to suspect bad intentions, I don't think it's enough to say, well, it's a chicken and egg thing.
Not bad intentions, human intentions. Greed and profit.
Once you make so much money, doesn't it free you from caring? When you have fuck you money, who cares?
I mean, to some people it doesn't. Some people it doesn't.
But the thing is, what makes Joe Rogan, in a sense, foolproof is that the support unconditionally from his fans relies on him being honest.
That's the narrative.
It's not the narrative. It's the reason he's popular. Don't you think? Why do you think people love it so much? It's finally given you this opportunity to hear people unscripted talk.
Within that context, though, he can have someone on who's not quite as credentialed as he's saying they are.
Maybe, but he's also open to having...
and not quite as straightforward about what they really want.
Yes, and there have been guests that have come on, and then he doesn't have...
That's the little space that he's working in.
I'm just saying, you won't see Joe Rogan clips. You won't see Joe Rogan misrepresenting anything. He posts the entire episode unedited and unscripted.
I'm not talking about misrepresenting, but he can misrepresent an issue by showing only the side he's curious in, which is totally valid.
You can only know what you're curious about, because you can only know what you know.
Totally, but it becomes problematic.
Look at his response video.
It becomes
He didn't say "fuck all you guys." He said, "It's interesting. Yeah, I'd love to have other people on." And you think that's suspect?
So the one thing about his response video, which I didn't like, I want to say the first thing first, which is it's okay to do. When a show reaches 11 million listeners an episode, that it's not the same thing as it was when you were sitting with your buddies in a basement smoking pot. It just isn't. And you can either say, not my problem. And I have no responsibility to do anything. It's kind of like what Jon Stewart did on the Daily Show. Like I'm my lead-in is a puppet show making crank calls. Not my problem. It's 11 million shows. You guys deal with it. I'm just doing me. Or you can say, this thing that I do is not the same thing that it was, and I'm going to grapple with that. He's not grappling with it, which he has no responsibility to do, but it's a thing that he's not dealing with.
Michael.
So
I speak ill of King Rogan.
The second thing.
What I'm saying is, I think that is the best strategy he can do.
Sure.
What else is it for him to do? To say,
and he has
I'm
a different
huge
opinion.
now. He makes such a concerted effort to not pedestal himself and buy into his own reach, because if he does that, then he becomes compromised.
It may be that you can only do this show without running into serious problems until you get so big, and then you have to stop.
Why do you think, though? Like, all he has to, he's like, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. Talking to who I want to talk to.
He can.
There's nothing irresponsible about that. Clearly, people like it.
He can, but there's when Neil Young is taking his music off Spotify because of an episode you did. It's not. It's you're just sort of like you're not quite reconciling what exactly this thing is anymore. But anyway, I want to in the response video. The story he gave about Neil Young, where he was a security guard, he was getting paid $18 an hour, and when this fight broke out, he was just like, "Fuck it, I'm putting my hood on and leaving." I thought it was the worst example, because basically he was saying, "I don't care what my responsibilities are. I don't care what job I signed up for. If I don't want to do this anymore, fuck it. If it's not working for me, fuck it. I'm just gonna walk away."
You read too much into that. I think he was trying to connect.
I know, it was such a weird story to give, though. I get it. He was trying to connect to Neil Young, but like, what a bad example.
Interesting. Didn't bother me that much.
I'm gonna put my hood up and walk away if I don't feel like taking responsibility.
He was probably. I think it was a light story, not a heavy story. And I hear what you're saying. There's irony in the fact that I'm just walking away from my responsibility.
Yeah.
But more important than that, the response I thought was, yeah, I'm a super fan. Sure. Full disclosure. I love what he's about and what he does.
So am I, by the way.
Yeah, not anymore. You're off, Michael. You're off it. And I know you are, but what do you think, first of all, of my response? Is it exactly what you were thinking?
It's exactly what I said to Mark.
Is it?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I was like, you don't get this guy. You have to listen to the show. He's the good guy.
Oh, so you do agree, but you're just saying he checked your biases a little bit.
He checked my biases.
Checked your confirmation bias. Fine. Everyone has to do that.
Yeah.
Now come back and stop being a fucking idiot.
I mean, I know people who are super, super cool. And if you look at their social media, like they seem one way, but like, like you spend time with them, you went to like high school, college, whatever. Like, when you get them alone in the room, like they're not quite the nicest guy in the world. Like they're not quite as
Sure. The evidence about Joe Rogan, testimonial after testimonial from personal experiences from people who know him closely and distantly, is always consistent.
Totally.
And they have no financial incentive to say it, but nothing but integrity.
They do have financial incentive to say it because he puts them on the show and it's great for their careers.
Okay, but people say who are as successful with or without him. People who run the gamut. People who've already been on the show. Yes, they want to be brown nosy, maybe complimentary. Yeah. You could say that as the worst of intentions. But consistently, you don't get a kind of reputation like that if you're what you're saying. You're not who you seem.
But I don't think
you just don't get.
I don't think it's mutually exclusive for him. I mean, I said this at the very beginning of like COVID, where I was like, it seems like there's an unserved audience, and he is serving it.
Well, I
don't think that makes you a bad guy.
Of course not. But what you're saying is there could be this other side that we don't know. But I'm just saying that the evidence points from people all over the spectrum and all over the map of fame and power, and from everybody, they've all said very consistently. He is a very good guy, and he does have the best intentions. Right. It's I don't think it makes you a bad guy to be like, there's a lot of people who want to hear these interviews and no one's giving it to them, so I'm going to do it. And like, are you saying then you don't trust him at his word when he says, I'm interested in these people?
I think he is interested in those people, but I think he also knows. I think he knows what he's doing. I just think he knows what he's doing. I don't think he's just having on Malone because he wants to talk to Malone. I think he knows this is going to be a big fucking deal, and it's going to make us a lot of ad dollars.
Yeah, but you can follow the paper trail. Not paper trail is a bad word. You can follow the curiosity trail of Joe Rogan, money aside, all the way from how COVID narrative has been structured and perpetrated onto people. It started with Brett Weinstein, who knew Joe Rogan from other issues that had nothing pre-COVID. Yeah. So he has a credibility with Joe Rogan, Brett Weinstein. I think it started with him. He has social and intellectual credibility with Joe Rogan that predates COVID. Yeah. So he trusts him. And when he brings up concerns about what's going on, that leads Joe Rogan to say, okay, let me put him on with his guests.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can just follow the integrity trail over how this all happened. It wasn't like, the mainstream media has this narrative about COVID. I could really make a lot of ad dollars from having someone with a counter narrative.
It doesn't need to be that extreme. I also think if he were listening right now, he'd say, yeah, you should be critical of me. I have $100 million from Spotify. If you're not critical of me, you're the idiot. Like, sit there, talk about it, figure it out.
But be critical. But I just haven't heard too much. I've heard a lot of like caricaturing, calling him a transphobe and a racist, all this ridiculous criticism. Right. I want to hear critiques of Malone's arguments, not of Malone as a crackpot. Tell me what he said that's objectionable. Yeah. Tell me what Joe Rogan's wrong. Rogan's open to being wrong. My point is, you can follow how he got to Malone and McCullough. You can follow it. Yeah. If you follow his guests and his curiosity, it's all there on display in 3 to 4 hour segments. All like, if you just do it and do the work before coming to these conclusions, you'll find that there's really nothing I can say other than what it is here in front of me, honest conversations with interesting people. The evidence points to that more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, but you could say the other way, and that's the way he went, and so that's just
you could. And you'd be wrong, I think, given if you're a data-driven person, you want to think rationally and critically. If you follow the evidence, it's all on display for you in the show's content, and if you follow the show's content, that's why I'm confused by a lot of it. On the Neil Young thing. Please. This is dominating the conversation.
Do we have time for your Jordan Peterson recap afterwards?
Absolutely. Okay. I think we do. This is a nighttime.
Should we do the 3 hour one? Should this be a 3 hour episode?
I think this is a nighttime one. Okay. And I don't have time, but let's do it. It's a nighttime episode, so I'm really feeling it right now. This is good. No pressure to get home. and
Yeah.
deal with responsibility. It's like this is late night with Buckle Up. Late night, Buckle Up podcast.
Wear like satin robes.
We should start doing that kind of stuff.
should start
Podcasty
smoking.
stuff, cigars.
Yeah.
Anyway, Michael. What I find. Did you see Adam Carolla's take on this? He basically said what I had been thinking the past few days.
Yeah, I saw it.
He's like, with Neil Young, I don't really have Adam Carolla down the way I want to have him down. But he's like, it's interesting, because I always thought Neil Young's
Slow,
a
you gotta go
rocker
slower.
who's talking out against the man. But the man isn't Joe Rogan. The
Right.
man is Anthony Fauci. The man is CNN. The man is MSNBC. And yet he thinks he's speaking out against the man, and that's Joe Rogan. Basically,
Do you want to give a quick recap if someone's not familiar with the whole controversy?
if you're not familiar, you could just sit the hell up. Sure. So, the recent headlines are that Neil Young demanded that Spotify take his music down as long as they keep Joe Rogan on Spotify. It's either me or Joe Rogan
Because of misinformation.
Disinformation, which is such an obvious propaganda term that he seems to have bought into. And the irony to me, so he demanded Joe Rogan's music, and a lot of artists, even from the hippie era, have followed suit.
Joni Mitchell?
Joni Mitchell.
Yeah.
Yes, Joni Mitchell, Michael, come on.
Not Jody. Jody
Joni Mitchell. India Ari announced today.
Really?
Yeah, some people were announcing. Now I have, and speaking of, suspecting people's intentions here, I actually think a lot of this comes from gripes with Spotify and musicians and that relationship. So they're using this as a way in to say, yeah, I fucking hate Spotify too. And now it's all kind of just the dam is breaking.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just talk the political or the current controversy involving Rogan. I find it so incredibly bizarre and ironic that artists, musicians, especially ones from eras where it was all about fighting the establishment and supporting free speech and free speech and expression, would side with mainstream institutional narratives, big pharma, big tech, big government, side with all of them against I would say, fellow artist, comedian, podcaster in the realm of the arts, and suppress, and I don't mean from a governmental censorship level, but a social type of censorship, demand he has to be shut down. To me, it's the equivalent of saying, I don't want that band on, I want to be on, but you can't have that band on. It's so bizarre to me that artists would take this position. It makes zero sense.
Do you want to hear the conspiracy about it? They're not.
Yeah, Neil Young's got an album coming out.
They're not siding with the corporations. It's the corporations siding with the corporations. Neil Young doesn't own his music catalog anymore. A private equity group does, which I believe is owned by Blackstone, and Blackstone has a big stake in Pfizer. So when
I thought you were blue-pilled, bitch. Now you're back.
So when Neil Young says I have a problem with this, as Andrew Schultz says, it's not necessarily guys in a room scheming it, but when Neil Young says I want to take my catalog off of Spotify and shut this guy up, who's like the most prominent, he's not even anti-vax, but the most prominent critical thinker of vaccinations, the people who own his music are like, all right, that works. Take it off Spotify. Like, who cares? Put it on Amazon. And we, by the way, Amazon is like the saint. Like, we should be supporting.
So you think
Amazon.
this all is just Neil Young is the pawn and there's a corporate interest involved?
Because
I heard a much more plausible explanation. My bandmate, who's a huge Neil Young fan, said, as a response when he said that, yeah, Neil Young's crazy and he's always been unpredictable. I wouldn't be surprised if he's on Joe Rogan in 3 weeks. He's been alone
really
in a
funny.
house in the mountains. He hates human beings. He hates life. He hates everybody. He's got an album coming out, so he does. Even though he's not doing this intentionally, he may have a gut instinct to want to say something publicly.
Yeah.
And he's like, comes from a time where he's liberal and believes that. And he maybe genuinely believes that anyone standing in the way of getting out of this pandemic and slowing it down for the recovery of it, if he thinks everyone should just get vaccinated and this anti-science stance, he buys into that. It's just like, whatever. But maybe in 2 weeks, I'll be like, you know what? Yeah, fuck the vaccine. And I'm like, yeah, that kind of makes sense.
That makes sense. It's just interesting to think
Dylan
about.
is the same way.
Yeah.
Like people say, I love your stance on the war. Fuck that. I love war. Like he's just in that way, says whatever he feels in the moment.
Yeah. It's interesting to think about how these artists, Bob Dylan also doesn't own his music anymore. He just sold it for $300 million, his whole music catalog. it's just interesting to think about how Neil Young taking his music down isn't as simple as like you hitting delete on Spotify for Distant Cousins. It's like
Well, for
there's
some
a
people,
lot of
for
corporate
some people it
machinations
is.
but not for Neil Young. Like
Okay.
there's a lot of corporate machinations in his removal of his music.
Machinations.
With machinations, which makes you think like who is benefiting here
Sure.
necessarily.
But let's just take it all at face value that Neil Young genuinely says what he believes because he's in a position that he can do that and is saying, this is what I want for this reason. What's your take on that? Isn't that so bizarre?
Yeah, no, it is. I think it's
Doesn't it seem so backwards? How do you?
Yeah,
how,
yeah,
how
yeah.
are someone
No,
not
everything you said,
realizing
everything you
disinformation, misinformation? That these clearly are such propagandist terms.
The drink I had with my friend made me understand it more. Where if you don't listen to him and you do have truly gotten the idea that he is this like misogynist, racist guy with bad intentions who's like, you know, exploiting his platform to just give crazy people what they want to hear, like, and you're alone in a house for a year by yourself. Like I could see,
Sure.
I could see how that happens. I was actually pretty like sympathetic, not agreeing with him, but
sympathetic.
understanding
Oh, I
like,
can see
like
why you
how
feel
you
that
get there. Yeah.
But here's the thing. The advantage that a lot of Joe Rogan fans have is they know what's on CNN and they know what's on Joe Rogan. But the people on CNN only know what's on CNN. They don't know what's on Joe Rogan. They're only responding to a caricature. I doubt Brian Stelter is watching hours of episodes of Rogan. He's like, so clearly we have this fucking baked potato. But they don't know. They're just they're like creating a caricature.
And they're calling him a racist. Calling Joe Rogan a racist is insane.
I'm saying they lose the credibility instantly.
Yeah.
The argument is over. There is no argument because you're not engaging with anything real. You're creating a caricature and criticizing that. That doesn't exist.
Yeah.
What exists are hours and hours and hours of conversations with interesting people of all stripes. I've seen everyone on the political spectrum on Joe Rogan. And Joe Rogan almost rarely will debate. He almost never. What's so, I think, unique about Joe Rogan is that he's very careful when somebody's giving an opinion to listen to it and not wait for it's like, oh yeah, but this isn't true, like because I heard this and now I'm bought into that. He's like, oh that. So, but what about he'll say from a curious. So, but what about the argument of that? Like, what do you say to that? I think his natural instinct, what makes him so gifted at this conversationally, is that he seems to be very curious and open to a different set of ideas. What's good? I would like to see is two people debating on his show. And he's had that too, the vegan guy versus the meat guy. He's had stuff like that too, and he just kind of referees.
Right.
And it's amazing to watch, and that's why people like it. And mainstream media can't handle it. People thinking for themselves, they can't handle it.
I mean, Schultz had two really good points where he's like,
Who is Schultz?
Andrew.
Oh.
Andrew Schultz. Yeah.
On Flagrant.
Yeah. Well, you were saying...
I know Schultz. I thought you were talking about a different Schultz.
He was saying, like, does CNN think people... Let's say they shut Joe Rogan down. Do they think they're going to go from Joe Rogan to CNN? Like, that's not happening. And also, he was like, you don't understand how much people want to watch CNN. He's like, you know how people want it in the easiest way they can. They want news the easiest way they can. They want to turn their TV on, turn on CNN, and get good news. But you can't do it. So you have to listen to a 3-hour podcast with a doctor you never heard of before.
That's what Schultz said?
Yeah.
You said that. I thought it was your idea, but you ripped it.
What?
You're like, I don't want to listen to 3 hours of a podcast. I want to listen to
No. That was original. I heard him say that today.
Oh.
So maybe I'm as good as Schultz. I'm as good as his co-host for sure.
They don't want to listen to CNN. They don't want to listen to Rogan. They want to be on CNN and get some news. You know what I'm saying? They want to get news. It's like,
yeah, he has a great cry.
It's like Andrew Schultz. I'm just like, so factually, CNN is off the charts incorrect, and they're crazy. It's like they don't want to listen to you. You know what him with Charlemagne the God?
I love Charlemagne.
Charlemagne's interesting too, man. He's got a funny voice too. Brilliant Idiots to talk like this. I love that shit, man. Tell me about finger penis. You know what finger penis is? I gotta get out.
I've been listening to Charlemagne's Breakfast Club live on the radio when I drive to a daycare in the morning. It's like the best part of my day. Angela Yee has the most amazing voice in the world. She gives advice to these people.
She's like the one who talks like this on the show, and she's like, "Yo, Angela, tell me what they want to hear, Angela."
What would you say if that was happened to a friend? I can't do it, but
so I met a guy. He had finger penis. Angela, tell me about finger penis. You ever had finger penis? Finger penis is the real thing, Charlemagne. What's the other guy? DJ Envy.
DJ Envy, yeah. I want Charlemagne to be Jewish and like rep Jews as hard as he reps his own community.
Which is
which is the black community.
Oh. I caught you there, Michael, trying not to say it.
Rudy Israel is the Charlemagne for the Jews.
Sure.
Yeah.
Shout out, Rudy.
Did you see his video to Whoopi today?
No.
Whoopi Goldberg. You know, that's a fake name. She chose that name.
That's very funny. Why is no one saying that? I did see a funny tweet from Elon Whoopsie Goldberg.
That's funny.
And I was like, before I knew what had happened, I see a tweet and it's, maybe he was sharing a tweet or it was his tweet, but it said Whoopsie Goldberg. And I said, something happened. You know, when you know before you know a story's broke, but you see a few like patterns of tweets and you're like, something's going on and I don't know what it is, but I got to and then
it's an obvious joke that everyone
and Raza says to me, she's like, yeah, Whoopi Goldberg, you see what she said? I kind of have, I usually don't have Rahmanas in these situations. Mercy, that's the Hebrew word for mercy, but I saw it and she's so dead wrong and so ignorant in what she's saying, but it's not like cancelable. It's educational. It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, so I saw Kim Iverson on The Hill had a good point where she's like, a lot of people agree with Whoopi Goldberg, and now that conversation can't be had, and all those people who need to be re-educated won't ever be re-educated because she just got suspended. So we're not going to have that conversation.
And also, I sort of get why it ended up this way. Her conclusion, when you have this campaign over the last few years that racism can only be about white people against black people and it cannot exist in any other manifestation, that's the narrative that's been peddled for such a long time. That is a black and white issue. People of color and white people are all one thing in one category. Racism otherwise has no other context, has no other manifestation, has no other history. This is going to happen. People are going to misspeak like this. I don't like the term misspoke. It's like this soft apology term.
Yeah.
But I was watching clips and trying to figure out what's happening. You're watching this, and it's pure ignorance in its purest form. The way she's talking, and you wonder, you think it's willful ignorance?
I don't think it's
that was man's inhumanity to man.
The most
and the most
hateful.
I've always it's like, Sam, she has a way, and I said no because this is a book about a mouse, and she has this way. Okay, I'm talking. This is not about race. It's not. It's not about race. This is about man's inhumanity to man.
It's good with my eyes closed.
With your eyes closed. Yeah, let me whisper sweet nothings in your ear as Whoopi Goldberg. About man's. But if you view all people with, it's just, there is nothing more definitively racist than Nazi ideology and their determination to kill all the Jews based on the fact that they were Jews by blood. You can't define racism more crystal clearly than that. And yet she saw that as white against white people. It's just such a contemporary understanding or narrative being superimposed on the past combined with ignorance to it.
It's ignorance, but I think there's something willful.
And of course, no one on The View could talk back. It was ridiculous.
I think there's something hateful about it. The most hateful anti-Semitic experience I've ever had in my entire life has been with Black Israelites on New York City streets or the subway. Yeah. Like if you ever walk up to one of these guys and talk to them, I mean, like, I don't want to conflate Rastafarianism with like Black Israelite. I know they're two different things, but if you ever get into conversations with at least like a Black Israelite, so there's hateful anti-Semitism. And like I feel like what
and Louis Farrakhan style.
Yeah, what she was saying
I'm not
draws from that.
I'm anti-termite.
I think I don't know if that specific idea
ever make that claim, but that
it draws from that world,
sure.
And there's a lot of people who think that way. And I don't know, when she was on Colbert, like she didn't want to.
Oh, so I want to talk about Colbert because the saddest thing to me, I didn't see what she was saying on the Holocaust specifically. In this context, if I'm just examining this conversation, it seemed more from a place of the ignorance of Nazi literature and ideology and how explicit. And also she was like, you couldn't tell Jew from non-Jew. Nazis had posters of what Jewish noses looked like.
I think it's the tip of the iceberg.
But you think it stems from that campaign, the narratives about Jews in the...
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think it's a symptom of a way she thinks, and clearly people like that she surrounds herself.
There are certainly cultural elements and religious elements in that affect the. I don't know if she comes from how much she's influenced by Nation of Islam ideas or Black Israelite ideas. I just don't know. I really have no idea.
I think
you're making that assumption, but I have no idea.
I don't know where else it comes from. I don't know where else it comes from.
I
It's
think it
not
comes
from there.
more from the modern understanding of racism as purely a black and white issue, and therefore any other historical examples of it aren't that. They're something else. They're bad, they're deplorable, but they're not racism as she understood it. That's what she was trying to explain on Colbert. The saddest part of the Colbert thing, and I was like, oh, this is just really sad, was that at the very end, she gives this tiny little clue to the camera that everything she just said, she didn't mean, and I think it almost can reinforce anti-Semitism.
What'd it do? What'd you do?
So she goes at the very end. Now, I don't want to give a fake apology. And I know I hurt a lot of people. And what I said was I should have said both, right? And that is why I received it. I heard you. And I'll never bring it up again.
Exactly.
And I went, oh, this is a fail.
Right.
This is a total fail. Because do you really think you solved if you suspected ill will she might have had towards Jews, which I don't think she does. I personally, maybe it's my gut, my understanding of how she was communicating. I don't think she does, but she certainly has some ill will now.
Well, what she was saying,
based on being cornered, and I'm not sympathizing with it, but I'm saying tactically, you now we had a knee-jerk reaction. Yeah. We cornered her in canceled and shut down when we also said we're so against cancel culture in other contexts, and yet now we pigeonholed her and forced her to make this statement. Is it genuine? She's like, I'll never bring it up again. Is that what we want? Let's never bring this up again? Or should we get to a place where I'm not saying there shouldn't have, of course there should be a response, but I'll never bring it up again. She looks right into the camera and she gives you this hint of, okay.
What I took from that was a hint at. I might sound crazy now. What I heard from that is like, you don't fuck with the Jews because they control the media and they're gonna make you lose your job. Like you don't bring
soundbite.
You don't bring.
I'm soundbiting you on
you
that.
don't bring things like that up on a public sphere if you want to keep your job. And I was like, yeah, that's the thing that needs to be reeducated.
I just think as a people. And as a community and as a society, as a community, broader Jewish community, aren't we mature enough and have stable enough egos to hear a wrong idea and not be so reactionary?
Specifically with her, though, she's been a big proponent of cancel culture. I think that's why people jump down her throat.
Yeah, sure. And that's what Tim Dillon said in his tweet. Well, isn't it funny when they've been for deplatforming everybody, then it comes from one of their own and they're outraged.
Right.
Now, that all aside, maybe people are using this as an opportunity. Gotcha, whatever. My point is, I'm concerned as a Jew with the Jewish reaction to it and
I hear you.
And the whole
missed opportunity.
We shouldn't be scared of the wrong idea. We should we should rise to the occasion to educate and explain what it is. And I get why it's upsetting, but what do you really want to do? Do you want Whoopi Goldberg to shed light and have a new perspective? I don't think to have a new perspective on it and be enlightened. I don't think you do that with intimidation.
And it's so funny because
I think Nick Cannon had an example when he stepped into this, but that was better handled. Somebody went on and had a conversation with him. Barry Weiss had the book that he read on anti-Semitism, and I felt when he came out with his apology, and this is all in the public sphere, so it's all kind of bullshit anyway. But he came out and said, "I actually really learned a lot. I had no idea about any of this."
There was an NFL player who had something similar to.
And those are the things that were certainly influenced by the things you were talking about.
Lupe Fiasco, I think, had something.
Yeah, and people are certainly influenced by that for sure, about those negative stereotypes about Jews, and that has permeated. And so you combat that with more speech, with better ideas, with better understandings. And you have to make these statements and you have to make these moral statements clear. But when she looked at the camera at Colbert and said, and that is scary. Why I'll never bring it up again.
It was chilling. It was pretty chilling when she said that.
Yeah.
I was like, I was
like, well, then nothing we did just worked. If anything, we made her more bitter and more resentful.
Oh, see, I don't take it on myself in that way.
Why was it chilling to you?
It was chilling because she's someone who believes in what she said, and now it's going back underground, which was like, to me, she's like,
exactly.
There's an underground of a lot of people who think this way, but you're not going to hear about it.
I'm saying
anymore.
that too. I'm saying we failed in.
Don't. I mean, I feel like that's like victimizing yourself. Like it's.
No, it's not. It's taking
the opposite of victimizing yourself. But let it be her fault. Let it be her fault.
Let it be her fault. Yeah, but she was shut down and canceled and told to, and now you're in trouble and you've said the wrong thing. Go away. And That's not mature to me.
Yeah.
We can handle
I
it.
didn't do that. I mean, ABC
You didn't do that.
ABC did that.
And I didn't. I understand. I'm criticizing that decision, that tactic. And the ADL had to come on and make statements. But the way they also did it, they did engage with her and all those things. But
No,
I don't take pride in we
Yeah.
got her. It's if anything, I think this stuff backfires.
Yeah.
I don't say you don't necessarily just let go. You don't let it go. You call it out.
Yeah.
But there's a constructive way to do it that I think doesn't have to make her say, "Oh, don't talk about anything that will upset the Jews."
Yeah.
Because that'll get you in trouble. Not I learned something and what I said was deeply wrong and I realized that. And then these public apologies are always fake. They have to say it if, you know.
And it's
I just wish someone on the dais, on the panel, could have just said something.
Joy Behar. What use is Joy Behar if she's not going to speak up at that moment?
Exactly. She's basically Jewish. I know she's Catholic.
Hilarious. How I can't watch an episode of The View without cracking up at Joy Behar.
Stop it.
Oh my God. Oh, Joy.
Oh, I know.
Joy gets me. Joy
Trump.
gets me.
Trump, you're an idiot. You're an orange idiot.
Joy is
someone's
mom,
your
who's
mother-in-law's friend who's annoying.
Who's a little funny sometimes.
Spunky, annoying, but also just like she's a little funny sometimes, but thinks she's funny all the time.
Yeah. Well, if you knew her in real life, you'd be like, "Oh, you could be a comedian," and then she does it, and you're like, "Nah."
But like, if Barbara Walters was there, she has some class and knowledge. She'd be like, Whoopi, no, this was absolutely about race.
Yeah. Whoopi.
But
Whoopi.
I wish someone on the panel would have been like, at least some pushback so
I didn't
that a
see
dialogue.
it. Did you watch it? I didn't watch it. No.
Oh, I've been watching The View every single day for the last 10 years.
Sarah used to watch it every day, and it would. It was like just a fantastic watch.
Yes, of course.
It's just wild. So the funny thing is like, on one hand, like the pro-Israel people are like, you know, mainstream news and The View, and they're all so anti-Israel. And then on the other hand, it's like she says something she's not allowed to say anything. I'm trying to get it right. Like if she says one anti-Semitic,
are the Jews losing or winning?
No, like the Jews. It's funny how each side now thinks that what they have to say is not allowed to be said.
Being suppressed.
It's not allowed. Yeah, exactly. So like, if you're pro-Israel, you can't say that in public. If you're anti-Israel, you can't say anything anti-Israel in public. If you're pro-vaccine, it's like maybe pro-vaccine's not a good example. But there's so many examples of that.
Yeah, I've heard once
time.
from an intellectual I follow who was like, the funny thing about the left and the right is both think they're losing.
Yeah.
In certain ways.
Yeah.
The left thinks the country's and becoming, when it was Trump, it's like becoming authoritarian. We're in the worst place ever. All our freedoms, in Bush era, all our freedoms. And the right, when Obama's president, we're losing. You know, it does go back and forth. Yeah. But I will say that there are differences if you just look beneath the surface. On the surface, it seems like, oh, but then you can't criticize it. Say one off-color thing about the Jewish people and you get in such trouble. Yeah, but Israel is a different scenario, and it's dominated by anti-Israel coverage. It's much more palatable to say just despicable things about Israel.
But if you listen to a Whitney Webb, she'll go on Tim Dillon and she'll be like, if I say anything anti-Israel, I'll lose everything I have. It's like
who's Whitney Webb?
Or she's this pro-Palestinian reporter, or like Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang came out in support of Israel when he was running for mayor, which is silly. Mm-hmm. And then Crystal Ball is like, oh, of course he came out as pro-Israel because you can't say anything bad about Israel. And it's like, well, what is it? What is it? Because like it seems to all the people, all the Jews I follow on Instagram that NBC is filled with anti-Israel. But if you say anything anti-Israel, you can't win for mayor of New York. Like what's the?
I guess there's a difference between the overt anti-Semitism rhetoric and the implicit or like beneath the surface kind of coverage. You can certainly say Israel's assault on Gaza that left thousands of people injured, and they're including.
Right. That's not.
You can misrepresent Israel.
That's
totally
not considered
fine.
Anti-Israel.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that just aren't considered that are. I think you could just get away with a lot more schemy, misrepresentative coverage of Israel and be totally embraced. And, even praise Hamas in certain ways. Right. You can't say overtly anti-Semitic things, but a lot of racism is like that today, where you can't just come out and be overtly racist or overtly anti-Semitic, because that we all can kind of agree upon in the modern context doesn't fly. So now it all goes into different
So if
channels.
I'm watching CNN with Crystal Ball and Rudy Israel is gonna go, oh my God, this is so anti-Israel, and Crystal Ball's watching the same thing.
Crystal
gonna
Ball's
go,
pretty critical of Israel?
She's very critical of Israel.
Yeah.
She's gonna go, oh my God, this is so pro-Israel, watching the same exact segment,
Uh-huh.
probably.
I'm not
Which is-
sure.
Which is wild. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean Abby Martin, one of these crazy totally
I think
anti-Israel
that's what
persons. Abby Martin.
Yeah, her and Whitney Weber the same.
Right. Abby Martin was on Joe Rogan. It was a very funny moment. I'm watching it, and she's trying to find these crazy rallies of radical Jews.
Yeah.
And she's watching. She goes, now watch this, watch what they're saying. And Joe Rogan's really being gracious with her and trying to. And you're watching, and she's like, I think it's further ahead where they say some things. And some people probably said something crazy, like, I'm Israel, whatever. And then they said something maybe extreme. But she was like really trying to find it. Meanwhile, you can pull up, tons of footage of the most anti-Israel rallies and rhetoric all over the Arab world against Israel. But we're not going there. So Joe Rogan has her on, and he's trying to find it. And but
Barry Weiss is the best example. To people who don't like Barry Weiss, she represents like you can't say anything bad about Israel in the press. To people who love Barry Weiss, it's like the press is full. You have to fight every day against. She's maybe the best example. Barry Weiss. She's like the fulcrum
of what?
Of like the people who support Barry Weiss think the media is full of anti-Israel. The people who hate Barry Weiss think the media is way too pro-Israel.
Right. Yes.
And like because of BDS and everything. Speaking of old white Canadian men,
did we even go there? I was in Florida this past week, and I had a very special treat. My wife.
Should I check let me check the video.
Yeah, check. Are we still going? I mean, it's charging, right?
Yeah, we're still going.
Okay, good. Michael, get back here. My flight got delayed. So I got an extra day in Florida after a wonderful, glorious vacation in the free state of Florida, which it really is. Even Bill Maher went off and said, it's just a different vibe down there, okay, people? It's just different. You go there, it's not the gloom and doom of LA where everyone's masked up and worried about COVID. You go there, and it feels normal, okay? I can't really do Bill Maher, but... And some guy's like, well, yeah, because maybe... And he's like, and you know what? Their death rate was pretty comparable to Mars, if not better. They did better. And he's like, well, they weren't a hub of international travel like New York City was, where many more people come in. He's like, all the old people there. I'm just saying.
That's what I do.
What do you mean?
Like
Bill?
when you bring up a good point. I'm just saying.
No, but he's saying, I'm saying that they went back to normal and they did just as well, if not better. And they went on and lived their lives, and they had all the old people. Maybe we could learn a thing or two. So, he was getting fed up with this whole nonsense. The point is, Florida's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Florida.
Florida's on the bottom.
It's the bottom
of the country.
Yes. The dick of the U.S.
Right.
The dick with no balls. Castrated in, I think, 1872. So I had an extra day, and Jordan Peterson was doing a live show in Miami at the Jackie Gleason Theater. The Fillmore Jackie Gleason Theater.
Is it a very large
Now
theater?
we can watch Jackie Gleason while we eat. It's a line from Back to the Future. I think it was Jackie Gleason, but
right in the kisser.
Boom! Right in the kiss. Is Jackie Gleason? Is that what he is?
I think he was the honeymooners guy.
Oh, boom! Right in the, which is Family
Yeah,
Guy.
yeah, yeah.
Boom! Right in the kisser. Well, we're really summing up things nicely. I have to tell you. I imagine what a Jordan Peterson show would be like, and I kind of expected all of it. It was still incredible. Okay.
How big was this place?
Okay. 3,000 people.
What give me an idea what that is? I don't know. What is that, like the Beacon?
Beacon.
The Beacon?
The Beacon, something like that. A theater.
Okay.
Not a stadium, but a theater.
Big theater, 2 floors.
Yeah. And what was so cool about it first is when you arrive, I thought we were late to the show, but it was actually running late, and everyone was still outside. So I got to see everybody as I was going to the... So...
Demographics.
Yeah. The first thing, you can't help but be affected hearing all of these things about... Remember how I said how when you're watching these people on YouTube and all of these dog and pony show, it's theater. You don't really know who they are. You just don't. The closest thing you can get is a live show where it's unfiltered and you really do see the person. And yes, they're putting on a show, but you really get a sense of, in a way that you just can't get when you're watching online media.
Mm-hmm.
And coverage and all these things. The first thing you notice when you walk by this line is that, first of all, it's around the block. It's so big. You're just like, an intellectual professor, psychology professor from Canada is this rock star filling theaters. It's unbelievable that people are so interested in ideas. That's pretty inspiring to me. It's really cool. I was just like, and I kind of knew, but I knew it. I didn't experience it. Now I was really seeing it. And I'm walking down and to get to where we're supposed to get on for like the ticket line to get in and check in. And we just keep walking and keep turning and keep walking. And the demographics of this crowd, Jordan Peterson, the champion of white disenfranchised men. I've been to Dave Matthews shows that are all white. It's all white. You know, it's one demographic, right? This is every race, creed, and color, every age, every gender, men and women.
Everybody is every gender.
It's all over the map. College age, young dating in their 20s, 60-year-olds, people from different countries, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, everybody.
Oh.
And
was it predominantly white?
No, I couldn't tell you.
Wow.
Every two people is a different person.
That's wild.
And if you're at a show, you're a super fan. You're not just like, oh, let me check this guy out. You're a fan. You know this stuff. And you're just walking by and you can't help but be moved by that. By the way,
is it possible they are all crisis actors?
What?
I don't know.
They're all going to see Jordan, and some of them you can overhear ideas. Oh no, I actually really like they're talking about some of his ideas. They're talking about ideas. And I'm just telling you, as I tell the story, I'm going to be slipping into so much Peterson.
I can see your eyes are glazing over. You're getting very emotional.
You can't help but be moved by that. It's like, I don't know what to make of it. It's too much in a good way. I'm going to be slipping into it because my impression was just like, I was getting all of this gold because watching it, I was just like.
How close were you?
Because sometimes when you do impressions of people for too long, you caricature yourself. You start doing an impression of your impression, which isn't the person you forget the source. And so watching him move on stage, it's like, that's something, And you begin to realize that you have to take your time with it. Oh, well, you do. So that's the first thing. I'm watching this crowd, and I'm like, this is unbelievable. And my wife and I are stunned. Just like she keeps asking me, who is this guy? I'm like, he's a Rebbe for the masses. That's how I can explain it to you. A Rebbe for the masses. Rebbe being from Hasidic.
A rabbi.
Like a rabbi, a thought leader for the masses.
Cult leader.
Okay. You know what, Michael? You know what? You really. So I'm struck by the crowd. Yeah. So this is all an experience for me. And then.
Wait, can I ask? How close? Where were your seats? Were you close?
Yeah, it was good. It wasn't front row, but it was like orchestra, like several rows.
You really had a good look at him.
He did look like I wasn't like a speck in the back, but he was enough to kind of see. There wasn't any monitors or anything.
Okay.
Then I Instagrammed a little photo. This line for Jordan Peterson is insane, and his daughter shared it, which was cool. Michaela shared it on her thing. That was a nice little moment there. But she usually hosts this tour. She's the host MC, but this time we had Dave Rubin, who I am a big fan of, even though I think he's kind of drifted a little bit in terms of hit. In terms
our
of
friend Ides had
listen. I'll be forever grateful to Dave Rubin because he brought so many of these people into my life through his show as the conduit. But we could talk. It's a whole other conversation on Dave Rubin. But anyway, he was hosting, and they go back. They did a tour in 2018, and he was the MC. He sat down. He came out and made a few jokes, some low hanging fruit stuff because the audience is super. He said something funny. He was like, because they required vaccines to get into the venue. And you had to show like your proof of vaccination. He's like, and he was like, I'm just look at all you 3,000 people, all of you so dedicated that you forged your vaccine passports to be here. And everyone starts cracking up. And he just moved to Miami from California, so he talked about getting away from. So anyway, he did the intro, brought Jordan Peterson out, and Jordan Peterson proceeds with his talk for an hour and a half. No notes in front of him.
Is he sitting or at a
lectern? Standing, walking.
Cool.
About
like a TED
stage.
Talk.
Like a TED Talk. And I have to tell you, it's like there's a moment when I've watched enough Peterson where something is so true and resonant, it hurts a little bit. Like when you hear a melody that you're like, oh my God, that sounds so. The subject of the show was the meaning of meaning. Okay? So the idea was, why are things meaningful? And it was really a response to nihilism and the idea that he was trying to make the case against why the nihilistic approach to life, which is it's all worthless in 1,000 years. Who cares? Why do anything? Why are things meaningful? And that was the sort of macro context of what he was talking about, but he really he held the audience's attention for an hour and a half silently, and he weaved together so many different things and ideas that are very complex, and yet you could follow the thread all the way through. And it didn't arrive at a particular point per se, only that, it's very hard to explain because a lot of it's very abstract, but he talked about basically, the intellectual case for spirituality, which to me, as a sort of cut and dry, more rationalist leaning person, I was like, it made me rethink and reevaluate, all that fluff of spiritual talk and sort of being skeptical of how do you know such things? So he wasn't saying he knows anything with certainty, but there are certain ideas that we just take for granted and we make assumptions about things. And, the idea of wishing on a star, a North Star. Like, what is that about? In the story of Pinocchio, we said, oh, you wish upon a star. Okay, we wish upon a star. Why is that a big deal? It's like the center of light in the sky that orients us, center of light that orients us. It's like through a center of truth that we arc our reality around and wish for a higher sense of idealistic, striving towards a better something. There's this idea of constantly looking up, and it goes back thousands of years. We all sit around a fire in a circle, and he was just explaining and elaborating a lot of weaving in mythology and story. We are part of this grand narrative, and when we're not, we are lost. We're resentful and hateful and bitter and prone to suffering and malevolence and tyranny and authoritarianism, and you bloody well better get on it, man. And you're just like, it all is making a lot of sense. And and then he said some things about children and the whole audience. He was like, and then you get this reoccurring theme of the overbearing parent where you protect your kids so much they don't build any resilience to the world, and then you're the danger to them. And the audience goes, wow. You hear like a, oh. And you try to protect your kids so much that you become the danger. It's like, no.
Just for everyone watching at home, I just want you to know Ami is tearing up if you can't see his eyes.
Am I?
You are, yeah. You're getting very emotional about
this.
It's
late, though. I'm exhausted.
I
don't want to take that away.
This was very meaningful to you.
Yeah, no, it's just what's crazy is that
I've never seen you so affected.
Well, it's like, you do the impression for so long, it makes you able to access certain emotional qualities that you thought were buried deep beneath the surface in the belly of the beast.
No, it's not about the impression, it's about the ideas.
I know. I don't feel what you're saying.
Oh, okay.
I'm not feeling choked up.
You're just gassy.
I think I'm just gassy. My point is, though, it's so like I walked away from that. What Jordan Peterson has done, and the reason everybody's in there is that he's given intellectual credibility to the sense of spirit people have. For so long, intelligentsia was just dominated by secularists, Hitchens and Dawkins and Harris and these people who spoke about ideas and these kinds of things, but always in a godless way. And he is infusing credibility to the notion that we exist in a universe we don't understand, and there is so much depth and lessons to be learned from our narratives and stories, and wisdom to be derived from that, from the biblical stories. They're not just to be discounted as fairy tales and made mockeries of by our modern day intelligentsia. And you're not stupid to be compelled by them. There is a lot there of ancient wisdom. He spoke about music. And that was big for me.
I listen to music. Oh, yeah.
He's like, why is music meaningful? It's instant. I was always fascinated with Who isn't fascinated with music? It's instantaneously meaningful. Well, music is about patterns. Okay, let's put that over here. And what are you doing, especially if there's a strong beat within the music and you start to move and you can't help but move? What's going on? Like, precisely what's going on? You're aligning yourself with the patterns of the universe expressing itself in a musical context. Basically, that there are patterns everywhere around us. And it sounds like the way I'm describing it can sound so fluffy and people accuse it of word salad, but you're just like, no, it makes a lot of sense in the way he was talking about it. I can't do it justice, even as an impersonator. I can't. But he described it and you're like, it's not like I was swayed. It was very, very, it just hit real hard. I was like, wow, I've been making music for 15 years and I've forgotten why I make music. The reason why something sounds good. Why does it work? Does it spark up my ears? Why does something make me feel sad or happy or move me in certain ways? And he articulated why in a way that was like, understandable, which is so amazing to me, that ability in describing it in terms of patterns. And I don't even know if I sound like I don't know what I'm talking about because it sounds so out there, but that when you're dancing to music, you are aligning yourself with the patterns of the universe. And I'm saying this, that I've described it in a movie once. There was a movie about Beethoven. It was like, music is the language of God. And I like that line. It's just true. Like, you forget when you do it for so long that you just take for granted. Oh, I just do this and this and this. And everyone goes, oh, that's nice. Why? What do you mean? Nobody can explain that rationally is really what the point he's making. There is this connection between heaven and earth, the Jacob's ladder, the symbolism throughout history, these shamanic experiences that people meditate on, and across all the subjects in this experimentation of different shamans, they've had identical experiences with psychedelics. No one can explain that. No one. It's like, okay. But we can't explain that. And yet there's this consistency, this thread that and it got me thinking by the end, and I'm going to wrap up on this, that arguments for God, theistic interpretations of the universe, atheistic interpretations, we can't escape in us the divine. And that's episode 16. No, so what are your thoughts? I mean, I could wrap up right on that, but you can't escape that. He's basically trying to explain that is really something. It's not something to just trivialize. No, I was like, yeah, that's something to think about. And he sort of wrapped up on that. That's something to think about. There is this, beneath this surface, this grand narrative, a substructure, a thing. And I'm talking about it seriously, but because I always like to make fun of it and do the impersonations and all that. But what he was saying and seeing it live and seeing him articulate this, which I haven't seen a person able to do that, this ability to take all these abstract ideas and concepts, seamlessly put them together into this presentation that was moving emotionally, spiritually, in all these ways. And that makes you think, if anything, there is something there. That's all he was trying to say. There's something there. That's the only point he was making. That was an interesting takeaway.
I think you did a really nice job describing how I.
Sorry. Yes, describing.
No, I think you did a really good job describing what makes him special, but more what that whole school of thought is doing. I think the only thing I would just add to that is he's a continuation of a long line of thinkers that he borrows from, and maybe he has synthesized it all, and he has this incredible platform, so he's able to popularize it. But if you like what he said, I could point you to some other people who
only Peterson. Who else?
Joseph Campbell is who I thought of. I'm sure he brings.
I thought
Joseph
you were talking
Campbell.
about like Hasidic spiritual thinkers that I'm always like, whatever. Because afterwards, my wife was saying, this is what they say. This is the same thing. It's what all the Rebbes say.
Yeah, Rebbe
and I'm like,
Nachman,
but they don't say it like that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so I don't want to push anything.
But I'd be interested to what he would say about Tanya.
I'll send you a video. So this guy Joseph Campbell. He did this incredible series of interviews with Bill Moyers on like PBS in the like 70s or 80s. And if you like Jordan Peterson, you're going to love this. And you can sit down and watch them. And they're awesome. So
I think I've heard that. Of course, I've heard the name Joseph
He
Campbell.
wrote The Hero's Journey. He like popularized the idea of, he might have even like sort of invented it, the hero, that every single story has a hero in the middle of it, and every single civilization and culture tells the same story about the same hero doing the same thing. Because as humans, we're all trying to express this thing we know deep in our psyches.
Right.
And we do that. We do that through stories. We do that through cave paintings and Facebook and the cans.
The problem is a lot of that, I think, gets bundled into entertainment. That's just what we do for fun. Right. And granted, things can be moving, but that's an escape from reality. And I think what Jordan Peterson's message is doing is saying, no, that's an insight into reality, not an escape from it.
Absolutely.
The artistic expression, the story we live by and tell ourselves is not a way to just cope, not a way to deal, not a way to escape, but a way to connect.
So before this, when you like, for me, that's obvious. Like when I hear a pop song, for me, I would go right there to be like, I don't like whatever, for whatever reason this pop song is popular, says something
It's
about
because you're ignorant.
the human condition. Is that not how you've looked at popular like songs before? Like a Britney Spears song, like "Hit Me Baby One More Time."
You have a deep spiritual experience when listening to "Hit Me Baby One More Time"?
Not necessarily, but in the sense that I don't take it for granted that this is a popular thing. Like this is, I mean, forget the lyrics, but even the lyrics, but like it's speaking to something. Like did that not occur to you before Jordan Peterson? Because I would think as a writer of songs, you would be in touch with when you write something popular, you're hitting a nerve.
I think
in the listener.
To that point, you do it for so long, you just take for granted certain experiences and insights and abilities. And when you can understand something, it demystifies it. So there's probably more mystery to you when you listen to music than there is for me.
Yeah.
Because I can dissect and tell you exactly what's going on and why it works. But why does it work? Correct. So then the deeper level that Jordan Peterson was illuminating for me once again is, well, sure it works, and you know why it works.
You know, I mean, I think after this whole thing, you might be coming more to my side than I'm going to your side.
After this podcast?
Because that's where I argue from,
What?
usually. Of I'm not interested in the why of the why. I'm interested in the why of the why. Like, I'm not interested in what Ben Shapiro's saying. I'm interested in why he's saying what he's saying, because he's a fucked up dude, and I want to know where he got all those
Just saw him over
ideas.
the past weekend.
Great guy, and he's coming on the podcast. No, but we're all fucked up. We all have these, I don't think Ben Shapiro's ideas...
But Jordan's
Anyway.
idea is the why of the why.
The why
is
of the why.
interesting. And that's what I can't answer necessarily. No one can, but it's there. So that's cool. And it also...
Well, people can. People have been talking about it for thousands of years.
No, but they can. They've been dwelling on these questions. Wow!
Well, I mean, no
They've been
truth
dwelling on these
can
questions.
ever be directly answered. We dance
Right,
around
right.
it for thousands of years, and
Right,
we hint at it,
and just
we-
experience it and connect to it. In other words, like you can experience truth without understanding what it is, and that's kind of partially what art
Right.
is in music.
You can't
You're
articulate.
experiencing the truth of something, and to me, I guess what I'm saying is truth existed to me in a very rational context, mathematical, data-driven, and he's talking about different kinds of truth, experiential truth that I didn't quite understand until I saw this show, and he explained it and elaborated on it in such a way that they're not competing truths. It's not like there's no contradictions, but there's a whole other. Here's the world here that we see, and there's a whole undercurrent of it that we are living with beneath us or in us, behind us, in front of us, above us, below us, everywhere. And in the music, I understand what's going on, analytically, and I can recreate it and do all those things when I hear it. So that's very rewarding and fulfilling. But the why and the impact that it does have when you participate in it is very important and deep. And I know that, but for me, what draws me a lot to music is the fun of it. It's really fun.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily on stage to try to, make a social difference. I don't have a mission other than to entertain.
But you don't have to have a mission to do what he's talking about.
No, not at all. The point is, because I don't, sometimes you risk trivializing it as, it's just for fun. What he's saying is that just for fun is very, very much more than just for fun.
Right.
Dancing to a rock song is participating in aligning yourselves with the patterns of the universe kind of talk.
Right.
And I said, when I heard that, I said, that's interesting. Because you're not asking yourself, why are you dancing to this? What's happening? Your body is a drum beat constantly. So just adding depth to everything in a legitimate way to me was really cool.
Yeah.
Because you're just constantly living in this state of, distraction. Yeah. And he says, no, the distraction's almost holy. Like, when you're imbuing things with holiness. Kadosh. He was from a non-Jewish perspective talking about Kedusha, holiness. Yeah. I thought that was really cool. I don't know anyone else who can touch this stuff in that way.
I'm excited for you to go on that journey because I think you'll find.
Want to do mushrooms next week on the podcast?
Well, it's funny you say that. I honestly, I think when you smoke pot and you're younger, a lot of these ideas become self-evident and you've never experimented.
Oh, but I have had psychotic breaks, dude. They were always self-evident.
Not the same. Not the same.
A psychotic break is way deeper than any weed, I'm telling you.
Well,
look, you haven't had that, and I haven't smoked weed, so we will
no,
never know.
Well, I'm just telling you, if you would have smoked weed at whatever 16, I think a lot of these.
But I was much more spiritual and idealistic at 16 than I am now.
But not in this. Not in this.
In this way, this was sort of a reawakening. I haven't thought about it in years, but I used to see patterns and things and do that and like just lend more credibility to that type of thinking.
Yeah.
This sort of I think reconnects me to that in a healthier way.
Great.
You
Cool.
know,
Yeah.
and when you've been psychotic and the world is upside down, you see dark things that maybe aren't real, but it's all real because you're experiencing it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess so, but you can't. You don't walk away from a break being like, "What can I take from that?" You're like
usually not. I've been afraid to go there. And
Sure,
this
sure,
was
I'm
sort
saying-
of
saying,
like,
but
so
with
what was
pot,
going on?
But with pot and psychedelics, you can walk away being like what can I draw from that?
Sure.
Where
And people,
not be
and he
afraid
did
of
say
necessarily.
psychedelics for people have been some of the most important experiences of their life,
Yeah.
which I get. But I don't think I think while a lot of people have taken and tried psychedelics, not a lot of people have experienced a psychotic break.
Yeah.
And they could be close. They
I'm
certainly
sure-
sound
I'm-
smelly.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Based on people who've described acid trips to me, I say,
Yeah.
yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
And it could be.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if you did a CAT scan of a brain on an acid trip, it probably looked pretty similar to a
Yeah.
psychotic break.
Well, when I've described
As a
people who took taken
neurologist, that's
acid,
just what
they
I
said
think.
that's exactly right. Like that
Right.
sounds like you took acid. I was like, I didn't take acid.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Well, this is exciting. This is really cool.
So I
man.
thought
I'm
that was
glad. I
just-
think you did a good job articulating.
I hope so. I
the
felt very
thing.
scrambled.
Yeah, no. I actually think you did a really, really nice job.
Um,
There's I did one more thing just before we wrap that up. I going to a fish show is a great example of that. Anyway,
A great example of what?
of I think when you go, you think about it pretty
Rationally?
pretty rationally, and when I go, that's my whole thing. I'm just like submitting to the experience of it and letting it move me.
But you have the benefit of your ignorance.
Yeah, sure. It would probably be even deeper if I knew music theory.
Right.
I think.
So I'm looking for that. I think I
Yeah.
just have a high standard because I kind of know when they're being lazy.
Yeah.
It's like a chef trying a dish and saying, you're saying, well, this is freaking delicious. It's amazing. And I'm
Yeah.
like, it is good, but
Yeah.
you know, they didn't reduce the sauce well enough. I know what it could be.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that from like a braggadocious. It's just true. Like when you have an authority on something, I can listen to Fish and say, yeah, they're kind of, and it's to my detriment too. I don't as
Yeah.
easily, whatever. It's the cost of it. Or when you're watching, if you're a film editor and you're watching, and you're like, why didn't they? They could have made that so much better. That could have hit so much better. I know what Fish is going for,
Yeah.
but sometimes I'm like, they're winging it and it's not doing it.
It would be a cool experiment to next time go and try to think of why does this make me feel good? You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but so the deeper question is when Fish is hitting it, I can tell you why. It's because they're hitting it, and I know. Oh, well, they hit that. They were in sync in that rhythm and that turnaround, and those changes, where they went, the dynamics built perfectly. The question beneath that is, why does that affect
Why is that
me?
hitting it?
Why is that accomplishing a certain effect on me? What is it putting me in touch with?
Right.
That's a question I can't tell. I can't answer. Why
Well,
something tastes
you,
good?
You can answer it by experiencing it and getting out of your head.
And that's all you can do is just be there. And
be
it's like
there.
the most in the moment thing you can do, which
Yeah.
is what Jordan Peterson was talking about.
Yeah.
And that in
That's
1,000
awesome.
years from now, when everybody's dead, that doesn't matter. That thought process doesn't matter. That outlook, the nihilistic outlook, is irrelevant to you holding your child in the moment and comforting them when they're crying or dancing to the music. And the point is, sure, all that's well and good, but it doesn't matter when you're getting in touch with the universe. And that was something I was like, and he said, and that's good enough for today. That's how we ended. And that's good enough for today.
So what I want to wrap up on
Oh God, wrapping
is,
up. Ooh, this is our longest episode.
is I was thinking how funny it would be if I mean because I was doing this on my own, but it's funnier if you do it. Joey Diaz speaking Yiddish. It's a Gewalt, Joe Rogan.
It's a fucking Gewalt. Joe, denn nicht gewillig. Verstehst du, gewilligst du, gewilligst den Stoff. Du leistest du gewaltig. Fucking gewaltig. I don't do the perfect Joey, so it's a little hard.
Yeah.
Like, gain cocking off and yam, off in the fucking yam. What else would he say? A knocker in the canvas. You know what that is? It's a naked woman. Beautiful fucking joke. No, Yosef Rogan. Yosef.
Yes.
Oh, it hurts my voice. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Well, on that note, we went from the political to the profound to the analytical to the funny to the
profane.
to the profane to the outright outrageous. This is Buckle Up with Mike and Ami, episode 16. Stay tuned for next week. Thanks so much for listening. We appreciate you. Coming up on 200 followers. Nothing to write home about, but I'm proud of every single one.
Me too. They're all real people.
Real people.
No bots.
Occasional bots. I don't even know.
Here and there, not really. No businesses. A lot of times you get businesses that want you to follow them back. We don't have that.
No sub for subs.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's episode
All right,
16,
buckle up,
Michael.
baby.
And remember, there's a fine line between order and chaos. It's like we're gonna do this with the fingers, Jordan Peterson fingers. Can't resist. That's Buckle Up, episode 16.
Buckle up, baby.
That's about all for today.